Super Mario Sunshine! Woohoo!
The GameCube had a very tumultuous early period. The Wind Waker is a very notable example of a game that wasn't done, and Mario didn't fare a ton better. Super Mario Sunshine is a fantastic game with great movement, cool tech, fantastic theming, and 14 stars per level counting the blue coins, some of the jankiest side missions imaginable, and a lot of reuse squeezed out of every completed asset. It's maybe 60% of a game, which really sucks, because if it wasn't, ugh. Super Mario Sunshine was an early GameCube game releasing in 2002 and would remain on that console for a number of years before seeing a port as part of the Switch's Super Mario 3D All-Stars in 2020, a controversial port that made the game look fantastic with higher resolution full screen, but also made it more difficult to pull off some of the niche tech that the GameCube's underutilized pressure-sensitive triggers serve, and the game is also set to release on the Nintendo Switch 2's GameCube Online service at some point, which will be a nice bit of accessibility when it comes around given Super Mario 3D All-Stars had a limited run, and, you know, the GameCube original costs quite a bit these days. Super Mario Sunshine is a very interesting sequel to Mario 64, a very, very simple game, but one with a ton of complexity and movement. Sunshine trades some of that, eliminating the long jump and punch, plus a few other minor things for the Flood, a water-spraying backpack. Its default mode shoots, Mario can run while shooting, or he can stick in place to aim. On GameCube, there's also some gray areas, like a little splash all over that's very strong in niche scenarios, whereas the 3D All-Star has the two main firing modes on separate buttons, because obviously the Switch doesn't have pressure-sensitive triggers, and Mario effectively has a gun. Sonic went with real guns, Mario went with this. The Flood kinda does everything. It interacts with stuff in the environment, it kills or stuns pretty much any enemy, and is crucial in most boss fights, and it slicks up a path ahead of Mario to allow him to slide faster and further than he would otherwise. A little bit of tech that's not technically necessary anywhere, but so damn fun that you'll probably see me use it an awful lot in this video. The hover nozzle's the other default, and it does pretty much everything. Jump correction, jump extension, a tiny bit of height, negating fall damage. You can spin jump, a very fun move with a lot of versatility, into a wall jump, into a hover, and almost nothing in the game stands a chance once you start chaining these things together. It genuinely decimates most intended design as you master the game and makes coming back to the game more and more fun as you master all the sauce. Both secondary modules are niche. The rocket nozzle comes up slightly more, it gives you unparalleled vertical movement and lets you get into some important spots, but without glitches, its minimal horizontal range is pretty limiting on what it can do and when it can be used, and the turbo nozzle makes you really, really fast, but is almost never necessary beyond some gimmicky secret stages. Sunshine does a whole lot of 64 again. Delfino Plaza is the new hub and kinda works like Peach's Castle, connecting each world and also containing a number of collectible secrets, while each world is divided into missions that each feature some layout tweaks to the map. 8 main ones, the 7th of which is always a Shadow Mario chase, 2 secret ones, usually red coin versions of the secret stages, and a 100 coin star, which is the scrounging mission. Plus 30 blue coins, the most obviously unfinished aspect of the game. For every 10 blue coins you turn in, you get 1 shine, the main collectible, and they're pretty blatant padding that's needed to fill the void left by 24 shines, which is the equivalent of like 2 worlds and some change. With the secret stars and 100 coin missions, you could probably argue that 45 shines in this game of the 120 are filler. The game also has some weird progression. Where 64 and Galaxy ask for star thresholds to move on, Sunshine looks for level progression. Beating certain bosses unlocks little events in Delfino that unlock Yoshi, the turbo nozzle, and the rocket nozzle, and the final boss is unlocked by clearing chapter 7 in each world, the Shadow Mario chase, which forces you to go at least that far into each, plus get at least the rocket and Yoshi to get to the end. For most people this won't change much. I assume most people just complete a full world before moving on, like in 64 and Galaxy, but it does feel a bit restrictive when it comes to like the context of a speedrun or a casual playthrough, where you lose the ability to pick and choose a route based on a number of factors. To its credit, it does mean that you're going to see most of what a world has to offer, but at the point that you're able to hop off, you're so close to the end that you might as well just wrap it up. I guess Yoshi is relatively important too, and very weird. The Yoshis in this game are juice constructs or something. I don't know. The eggs need to be given fruit to hatch, which lets you ride Yoshi for a bit. His flutter gives you some height, distance, and correction. And the juicy spits is a little more powerful than Flood, able to affect a few things Flood can't, like beehives and also this weird yellow goop. Plus Yoshi can eat enemies and other objects, but dies after a few minutes unless constantly fed fruit, and also dies when he touches water, which is fairly abundant given, you know, this game takes place on a tropical island and water is a pretty central mechanic of the game, needed to refill the flood constantly, which gives Yoshi a pretty neat little challenge, forcing you to take odd routes and be mindful of something that's otherwise an asset, which is pretty cool, or would be if Yoshi was useful more than like twice. One little thing that comes up a lot is floodless challenges, and that's interesting. Mario actually feels kind of weird in this game without Flood. The spin jump does some pretty heavy lifting, but he's very twitchy and imprecise without Flood. It's frankly a bit nerve-wracking to be without it, or in situations where it just isn't good, as rare as they are. I think that kind of covers gameplay. Sunshine is a pretty straightforward game, but the movement gets a huge boost in complexity and how interesting it is thanks to the Flood. It really allows for so much speed and control that level designs become a vague suggestion, which is my favorite kind of collectathon challenge. The game is happy to let you master it to go faster, move more smoothly, and skip the tedious bits. It's so fun and only a little crippled by, you know, the game not being finished. The blue coin hunt is an awful finale to almost every playthrough. As far as the aspects that absolutely never miss though, Sunshine is basically flawless presentation-wise. I mean, it has that kind of waxy toy-like feel of the 5th gen that pretty much every game of the time had, but I also love that shit. Dump it down my throat, I don't care. Isle Delfino is such a well-realized world. It stretches to every little corner. There's this general radiant warmth, the sun is ridiculously bright, and small heat lines appear on distant objects. Water is everywhere, blue as hell, and there are so many goofy characters that are basically unique to this game. Namely the Piantas, these chunky hula dudes who are just vibing around, but also the Noki, these little shell guys, a 4-eyed giant eel with a tooth infection, a giant blooper, the best version of King Boo. It's so fun to be here and see everyone. The plaza itself is the idyllic little village. It has a sort of Mediterranean style. Piantas lounge on the beach, little shops sell fruit, and a giant shine sprite overlooks the whole town, covered in goo at first, but when it's clean, the city changes from its overcast state to a comically vibrant paradise. And from here you can see almost every other location that you go to in the game. The ridge offshore has Bianco Hills peaking just above it, Corona Mountain looms over the whole city, and both Pinna Park and Ricco Harbor can be seen out at sea. And this illusion extends to pretty much every level. Bianco Hills can see Pinna, Ricco, and Plaza, and on and on. While the game isn't an actual interconnected map or open world, it does a great job of presenting the illusion that Delfino is a real place that people live on, which neither of the game's sandwiching really even attempted. 64 couldn't, and Galaxy's weird structure and freedom in design really couldn't allow it, although you will often see other planets in the distance. So it stands starkly as this interesting little attempt to expand Mario beyond what it had been before. It's kinda weird that it did this at the same time as Wind Waker now that I think about it. Both games with very pretty water, new styles, odd gimmicks, and both mostly unfinished. Also, I mean, the music is... it's hard to say much, really. It's kind of the most iconic thing about the game for good reason. Consistently, it has this tropical, bouncy tone and is so whimsical about it. Bongos are a very recurring element, and every stage has an alternate song when riding Yoshi, who is just the bongo guy. Delfino Plaza has the lightest little guitar that play this catchy little rhythm to introduce a fucking accordion as its highlight. The secret courses have an a cappella version of the original Super Mario Bros. Overworld music. Ricco Harbor is steel drums, whistles, and trumpets. Gelato Beach is all steel drums. I mean, man. Noki Bay starts with this kinda quiet and mysterious little bit and jumps into flutes and whistles. It's a tropical vacation soundtrack. Stuff with as much mileage as you could possibly squeeze out of the concept, and every single song on the soundtrack is incredible. Delfino Plaza, the most iconic by far, and truthfully the best, but goddamn is everything so good, it's just perfect. Also, there's voice acting here. I assume largely by like the interns and janitors, as was the style of the time. It's an odd addition, especially when it comes to like Toadsworth and Bowser, who are both not great and kind of out of left field as far as these things go. Bowser is much less intimidating when he sounds like some guy trying to sound gruff, and Toadsworth is all over the place. Peach is fine, and Mario's thankfully not talking, but it was one of those little experiments that died off in the series for a reason. To touch kind of briefly on the 3D All-Stars version, it's a neat little upgrade. The game has such a relaxed vibe and a great style that it doesn't look all that strange extended to widescreen, even if the modeling does show its age a tiny bit, and the game runs absolutely flawlessly. It's a very damn pretty port, and really highlights how fantastic Sunshine always looked, so I guess the big deciding factor is if you'll take slightly more limited controls for the improved aspect ratio and portability. I could go either way depending on the day, but both are fantastic. You're not missing out much by going with one or the other. It's about time Mario got a vacation, a chance to get away from the old ball and chain, you know, Luigi. Of course, when he lands on the airstrip, a giant goo piranha is taking it over for the tutorial and introduction to Flood. In the 3D All-Stars version, Flood has conspicuous gaps in his dialogue where he forgets the names of the buttons that he's telling you, which I find very funny. The airstrip is cute. There's not a lot to it, nor to the goo piranhas who just kind of open their mouth to get pissed in, but I like the initial vibe showcase with the blahs in the distance, and the way it's an island off the coast of the main island to show off the water. You do eventually return here for a brief red coin mission using the turbo nozzle, which has a fun little coin track to follow, but outside of a singular blue coin, this is just a comfy little tutorial area before Mario goes to fucking prison for gooing up Delfino, a crime quickly revealed to be pinned on him by a shadowy Mario clone he initially deals with immediately on arrival. Delfino Plaza, home, and the comfiest one ever, although it starts off a touch gloomy. Delfino Plaza is interesting. It definitely has the remnants of Peach's Castle in 64. It's a level select, it's got a few shines of its own, most of them in little sub-areas, but it also changes in ways more significant than Peach's Castle, but also subtly. Cleaning the big shine overlooking the town clears the skies and gives you a shine as well. Goo Piranhas act as mini-bosses to guide you through the level order as you progress. Shadow Mario periodically reappears as a chase bearing a gift. The turbo nozzle gets you to a sub-level, the rocket nozzle hides a few shines and lets you get to one of the main levels. You can get there without it, but you aren't meant to. And Yoshi gets you to another shine and another level. Hell, before the final boss, Delfino floods through the big dramatic mix-up in ways that's almost like a little Metroidvania where these little upgrades add movement to get around more conveniently and also to open up some new paths. Oh, this is obviously on an incredibly small scale. A good portion of Delfino Plaza's shines are filler. This game ain't done. Clean the bells, both of them, for a shine each. Clean the big shine, spray this nondescript spot on the beach. Not sure how you're supposed to stumble into this one, really. Spray the gold bird, spray the blue birds for blue coins, get thrown into a window, get on top of the lighthouse. Break down this door with turbo. There's nothing wrong with these. They reward exploring well, outside of the stupid beach one, and are more immediately satisfying than a blue coin would be. And there's a little mini game where you smash boxes in a short time limit to get a couple more shines, which is one of those infamous little things. There's a lot of infamous little things in this game. I mean, it's a precision mini game and the game that Mario feels the least precise in, but it's not that bad. More to the point on the awkwardness, Delfino Plaza has 5 secret stages, including the 2 most disastrous in the game. You probably already know the 2. Super Slide is not one of them. It's a very simple slide level, a trope from Mario 64 almost entirely dropped for this game. This one is fun, but you can literally just jump and hold forward and skip the entire thing. And even at the slowest, it takes like 30 seconds. Yeah, let's rip off the band-aids. Pachinko's the most infamous oddity in a game of infamous oddities. It's Pachinko, you launch Mario and hope you land near the red coins, and it has a lot of jank. Every surface inside of the Pachinko machine is a slide surface, so readjusting is very difficult, and the area around where Mario gets launched out has a kind of pushy field that tries to move you towards the center or the right side. The trick to Pachinko is that where you stand on the launch pad matters. Standing further to the left drops you to the left side past the pushy field, same for the right side. But that doesn't really erase the jank. I think the big problem is that the stage is kind of misleading. The first red coin is dead center above the launch pad. The game implicitly directs you to launch from that point by rewarding you for doing so, and so most people won't intuit that you want to act differently outside of frustration, which is probably how I figured out as a kid. It's misleading, and that misleading leads to people not getting past that point. It is janky beyond the initial mislead too, don't get me wrong, it's clunky and awkward in general, but it's mainly that first little hurdle that makes it so awkward to deal with. The other bad secret is the lily pad ride, both for itself and the way you get to it. Let's start with the latter. First, unlock Yoshi. Go to his egg, find the fruit he wants, bring it to him, keep feeding him fruit until the boat arrives so he doesn't die, ride the boat to the island, eat fruit on the island so he doesn't die, get back on the boat, jump to the other boat, jump to this weird pillar thing, eat fruit until the third boat comes, jump to the third boat, and finally arrive at the island to juice up the barrier. Each of these boat rides takes about a minute, and the whole process takes about 5. Not that long in a vacuum, but an eternity when a good majority of it is standing still and waiting for one singular jump, then returning to standing still. And if you manage to miss a jump because Yoshi moves kinda weird, you're going back to the start. It's frustratingly tedious. The idea of a Yoshi challenge where the goal is to keep him alive as his life ticks down is kinda neat, but there's no good way to execute on it clearly, if the best they had was 5 minutes of standing still. After all that, the actual level's also not that great. The lily pad course has an awkward crossbreed of the lily pad steering, which feels straightforward enough, move the opposite way that you spray, but on a linear course of flowing water that drags you around and makes hitting the red coins in one go very difficult. Reaching the end means one of two things: die and start over, or run on the narrow walls back to the start. And they're very, very narrow. It's hard to actually lose, but it requires a lot of patience to go back to the start even once, let alone 2 or 3 times. It's another very tedious one. On the other hand, TurboTrack owns. The turbo nozzle is so underutilized, man. It's pretty much the airstrip red coins in this, and I think maybe the single-use functionality of it is probably a factor, where you would basically end up with more of this. It would get old if it wasn't a one-off, maybe, but timing out the jumps is really fun, this one singular time you do it. Lastly, the red coin field is a red coin mission on a flying little square. It feels like a repurposed test level given the random fire you can put out, the weird blocks at random heights, the birds flying around. I really wouldn't be surprised to find out it was a test level given how rushed this all was. It's a fine little bonus, but like most of the Delfino shines, it feels like it was shoved in here to round out the game to 120 because the game kinda struggled to get there otherwise. On the whole, it's kinda cheating to consider Delfino Plaza a level on its own. Its shines are a mixed bag and bonus levels and little secret stars, and has a lot more going on than just that. The navigation of the place and little events to unlock things to progress are also little bits that tie the world together, although honestly, please, if they ever remake this game, just add one extra world and shove some of these shines in there, please. Bianco Hill, the first real world. Man, it's so comfy up here. The cozy little village overlooked by its wind sails, the white stone path to the lake overlooked by a huge wall leading up to a giant windmill on top of a huge hill. The way you slide down the hill to get to the village, oh, it's so cozy. And especially in the village half, it's really fun to climb around. The buildings are all 2 or 3 stories and just far enough apart that you need to be a little skilled to make it between them. And the music too. Unfortunately, the shines available in Bianco paint a fairly grim picture. In 11 missions, one is 100 coins, which can be done on most levels. Some levels have missions without enough coins, which is wonky. 4 red coin hunts, 2 are the same boss, 1 is a half level, and 2 are secret stages. Plus the obligatory Shadow Mario chase, and of course 3 stars from the 30 blue coins. Thankfully all 30 can be gotten in one run of level 8, although 2 require Yoshi, who isn't available for quite a while after the start. It's not that the game isn't fun in a moment, but there's not a ton of creativity on display, and it gives off a worrying feeling that the game, you know, I've said it 15 times, it's not done. The first shine is one of the most frustrating in the game, and almost certainly should have been cut for, you know, the second level. You feel it less on your first time and you'll be poking around the town, but you find a way over the wall, run to the lake, and fight your third goo piranha of 5. This is the first shine, we're doing this again already. This looks worse in context because the second level has you actually climb the windmill, do all the same steps, but continue up the hill, ride the windmill up, and fight PD Piranha, who to be fair is a great first boss. Same idea as the goo piranha, fill his mouth to oh god. Imagine how many people got a weird fetish from this. Ground pound his belly to flatten him out. He's not too dissimilar from the mini-boss, but the extra steps and the constant attempts to actually dodge your attacks and need to sustain a stream into his mouth to prevent him from attacking you back make him a fantastic little tutorial for the game. Of course, episode 5 is also a PD fight, although I do think there's enough change to mostly justify it. I mean, it takes place on the village half of the map, which is much more open. PD flies and needs to be shot out of the sky with these goofy little pig dudes, plus he gets a tornado attack that flies all over the place. It's 70% the same boss as the first time, but that 30% is a pretty nice addition, even if it doesn't help Bianca's case very much. Episode 3 and 6 are the secret stages. Each one of these is a floodless obstacle course comprised of oddly colored blocks floating in hell. I love them in general. The game has so many unique mechanics like the spin jump that are really fun to utilize to get through these stages, but admittedly they're not very interesting in a vacuum. Like, oh, episode 3 has big Rubik's cubes that push you off of a narrow pathway, or oh, episode 6 has panels that flip over periodically. There's still fun platforming challenges that make regular appearances throughout the game though. Speaking of, most of these secret stages make second appearances with Flood. Episode 9 and 10, hidden shines unlocked by returning to these secret stages for time date red coin challenges, and the additional Flood lets you really mess around in these stages, and some of the red coins get some pretty devious placement, which I really love. It is a bit repetitive to have 4 of the 11 shines be special stages, but you know. Bianco is also guilty of having 2 8 red coin missions, episode 4 in the village, which is very fun because of how well constructed the village is, and episode 8 above the lake, which is very vertical and utilizes the ropes that otherwise you really have no reason to ever bounce around on. Both are fine, but you see what I mean about Bianco, right? Like, everything is done at least twice. Episode 7 is the obligatory Shadow Mario chase. Every world has one of these as episode 7. They're all fine. Some take better advantage of Shadow Mario than others, where Bianco Hills is fairly flat, but it does get old regardless, and the 100 coins is what it is. Bianco Hills is pretty straightforward. The whole level is kind of the best and worst of Sunshine. It's an incredibly well-designed world, especially the village half, with great music and a great boss, but the missions just kind of feel like they were made in a weekend to wrap up production. 40% secret missions, 40% red coin missions, 20% PD fights, the Shadow Mario obligation. The first mission is the mini-boss you've already beaten for a third time. The game is cobbled together from scraps built on the world's most beautiful foundation. Ricco Harbor feels much more like a platformer level, a long stretch of harbor along the waterfront with a large construction project standing above that water, narrow beams crisscrossing to the top, large boats covered in grates and poles to climb, and all this is just great stuff. There's very obvious paths intended to get you up this big construction project that serve as the challenge here, while the waterfront is chill, but some good spin jumps and game knowledge really open up how crazy you can go in this level. Also, the music is great, obviously, and the shore also has a farmer's market, so really what more could you need? Ricco Harbor also plays some of its hits back, as Bianco had, but is generally much more well-balanced. Episode 1 and 5 are both battles against Scooper Blooper, who's maybe my favorite boss in the game. I love bouncing on his tentacles to get chances to grab them and rip them off, which opens him up to have his mouth grabbed, which is how you actually deal damage to him. But you can also just speedrun to his face at certain points in his attack cycles if you know what you're doing. The fight is pretty much the same both times, but to be fair, the second time you need to get to the helipad. The obviously intended solution is to get the rocket nozzles, a tutorial for that, but like, come on man, I don't need that shit, I'm just gonna jump over. Well, episode 4 and 9 are traditional secret stages. Episode 2 and 10 are the all too rare gimmick secret based on blooper surfing. A kinda clunky minigame, which is what it sounds. Riding a blooper that rockets forward at all times, with a slow one you should never use because it's too slow, a fast one you should never use because holding forward makes the medium one match the fast one's base speed, but can also slow down for better control, use the medium one. The race course is fun. There's some neat little spots you can do skips with well-timed jumps, and the second version of the race with a stricter time limit is very, very tense in a way that this game typically isn't. Episode 3 is something different, nice and simple. Go up, all the way up the construction project. The freeform nature of the layout makes this one so great. There's an intended path over the boats, across the moving poles, across the moving cranes, wall jump up these nearby girders, but you can also just go wild, skip all the boat stuff by jumping from the smokestack, then you're one good spin jump from the trampolines to the end. And there are dozens of other approach points too. It really is just the perfect little sandbox level where everything you do is a valid way to get to the end. Episode 6 is red coins, but you do it while blooper surfing, a fun little twist. Episode 7 is Shadow Mario on the girders, which is also a fun little twist. It's a lot more intense than Bianco Hills' version. And 8 is one of the very few starring roles for Yoshi in the game. Yoshi's juice can turn enemies, such as the fish jumping out of the water, into platforms for a small little challenge, which kinda leverages Yoshi's weirdness. His jumps and flutters are heavier than Mario's, Flood is offline, his spin jumps send you wildly high, but also further than you want usually. It's a short and simple challenge, but a very fun one and a rare moment where Yoshi takes center stage. Ricco Harbor in general is great. It still has some of the problems that Bianco did, and I think we maybe could have had another thing on the girders because those are definitely the highlight of this stage. Maybe like red coins, but I guess blue coins does kind of cover that niche. And I love that we get a good old-fashioned gimmick with the blooper surfing. I think this is the second, maybe third strongest world in the game, despite having some reused elements. Gelato Beach. I mean, by this point, you know the drill. The music kills. It's a gorgeous beachfront overlooking a reef covered in little cabanas, and it introduced the cataquacks, adorable little ducks that love sending you up. And they're basically the only Sunshine enemy to remain a semi-fixture outside of PD Piranha. They even show up in Galaxy briefly. Gelato Beach is also the level that feels the least done, even compared to Bianco. Hell, it starts on its only secret level. It couldn't even get the standard 2, but it is a fun one. I love the crumbling sand blocks as a level element. And of course, episode 9 is the obligatory red coin version. So what is episode 10? You spray the sand in this spot in this little underground area, and it pops out a shine sprite. It was lame in Delfino Plaza, and it's even worse here since this is a real level. You'd hope that with a secret mission shed, things would be a little bit better and they'd have some more unique ideas, but it's a mixed bag. Launching all the cataquacks off the mirrors in episode 2 is repetitive, but I quite like that you need to spray them to the edge and wrestle with them to make it happen. Episode 3 is a unique little boss fight against a wiggler. I don't know why this one's green, where you need to spray sandcastles to balloon them up and flip them over. I think this one's a little bit wonky. Sometimes he just flies into the water and you can't actually hurt him, and sometimes you're just like 1 inch too close to the sandcastles and get stunned for too long to hurt him. But it's a very unique idea that uses the flood well. And of course, episode 4 is the infamous Sandbird, an 8 red coin challenge on the back of a giant bird soaring upwards towards a pillar, with some blue coins to snag along the way, which is admittedly pretty mean. And maybe I'm just built different, but this shit's easy. You can get 7 of the 8 red coins within like seconds of the thing starting, despite the wings and tail flapping, and the bird threatening to leave you behind if you hover for too long. The trick is you really just don't have to jump. The only mean trick that it pulls is a single 90-degree lean when the bird turns that tries to dump you off, and you really only need to jump 2 times before reaching the top and jumping to the tower. I mean, you jump once so that you can survive the bird rotating, and then you jump again to survive it rotating back. All this is pretty good stuff. Unique boss, unique little sumo match with the cataquacks, whatever the sandbird is considered, and then the filler slams in. Episode 5 is a race against Il Piantissimo, the only human in the game who isn't Mario or Peach, who seems to be a Zelda reference judging by his appearance, but dressed up in a goofy Pianta costume, and he shows up a few times for very easy foot races that all last about a minute. I like them, but they're admittedly tiny flashes in the pan. Episode 6 is Red Coins in the Reef, a truly tedious swimming red coin mission which has all of the water level issues of being way too slow. Episode 7 is Shadow Mario in a largely flat area, and 8 is the fucking watermelons. You just push a watermelon to the shack, but everything in the world wants that watermelon dead, and if you don't know which watermelon it wants, it's this one up on the hill, by the way. You get nothing for pushing one over. Plus, I mean, it's not like the watermelon moves easily. A moderate poke from a slippery to control Mario sends it flying, and once it does, it's pretty much open season for all the cataquacks and the water all over the place. The whole thing feels like a half-baked idea in general. More than any other area, Gelato feels very half-finished, loading its front half with some really cool ideas that don't see reuse as most of them do, but also the back half is just filled with 2-minute long short bursts of random we need to get to 120 shines type missions that make the whole thing feel so flat. Pinna Park, an amusement park on a tiny island, a roller coaster, a Ferris wheel, those swinging pendulum boats. Pinna Park, if it was real, would cost like $1 trillion to go to, and it's such a surprising rarity in platformers like this to have an amusement park level, and I can't tell why. It is such a good idea. The Ferris wheel has a fun climb on its back to reach its spinning top, the pendulum boats are a chaotic mess. I love it. Also, for some reason, this is where all the plot in the game is. You know, the Mario plot. Right from the start, Shadow Mario reveals himself as Bowser Jr., a character now iconic to the series who first appeared here as Peach's twist son. I mean, he knows that Bowser's lying about that, but he loves his dad, and he's pretty damn cute. Not too sure about the voice acting, though. This all leads into the Mecha Bowser fight, which is a wacky gimmick fight from a roller coaster, collecting water missiles and launching them off at the stationary Mecha Bowser as he shoots bullet bills and flames at Mario. It's more than a little wonky, the loops and turns make aiming a chore, but this time the target is so large that it's mostly a non-issue. This mechanic returns in episode 8, where the target is a smallish number of smallish balloons, where you have 3 laps to hit them all, and it is a stressful, awkward affair. Basically impossible to fully wrap your mind around, especially since the rockets have some drift to them that adds just a tinge of randomness to what is already a huge headache. Episodes 2 and 6 are the secret levels, and of course 9 and 10 are the red coin variants, but 2 is fairly unique for having a boss fight before entering, a mole and a cannon who needs digital bob-ombs lobbed back at him, which I think is pretty fun. Weird that this guy got relegated to the gatekeeper for a secret stage. Let's see, episode 3 is red coins on the boats, which is very fun. The boats add a nice wacky flavor to an otherwise standard red coin collecting mission. 4 has you killing these weird egg turtles on the beach, which look like Yoshi and are how you unlock Yoshi. I don't know what the relation is. 5 is climbing the Ferris wheel, which is surprisingly hard to cheese because of the way it's enclosed in the back of the tower, which mostly limits you to actually climbing the grates like it wants to, which is a fun mechanic that you can usually skip right over. And 7 is Shadow Mario, of course. I think in general, Pinna Park is pretty great. Outside of its secret missions and Shadow Mario Chase, the whole thing brings you all over the park without much reuse of older ideas. Even mixing it up enough with its red coins, it's another very, very strong one. Sirena Beach scores a lot of easy points for being the sunset level. I mean, come on, we're only gonna do this once? It looks so good. Also, there's like a haunted hotel and casino, that's cool too. I really like the lobby area, especially with the bamboo floors and little ponds. I would stay here even with the ghosts. Sirena starts with a very unique boss, the Manta, the weird electrified specter of a manta ray that swims up on the beach and leaves electrified slime in its wake, splitting into smaller and smaller mantas as it takes damage and becoming more and more chaotic as it goes. I absolutely love this boss. It's so visually weird, so overwhelming, and even the scatter spray, which is very, very good against it, doesn't completely solve it, especially as the small slime trails of the little mantas start to poison everything on the ground. And the race to clean up a fresh batch of slime in episode 6 is a really fun time challenge that always comes very close. Even knowing about the scatter spray, the barrels of water become almost necessary to get big sections clean, and I just love the beach part of Sirena. Episodes 2 and 4 are the secret courses, and 9 and 10 are the red coin variants, but 4 is a hellish affair to get into. The casino's a really cute area, but this mess where you need to flip all the panels over with an inaccurate hose, shooting little drops of water all over that make all the panels flip wildly, it's genuinely rage bait. It's such a frustrating and awkward little gimmick that you have to do twice for the fucking red coins. Did I ever talk about the shotgun spray? I probably should have. If you're in first person mode, like the aiming mode, and you press A, you'll do a backflip to shoot a bunch of water in just like a big cone. It's very good in general for just destroying anything, but also if you jump on the frame that you would do the backflip, you actually maintain control over it instead of doing a backflip, and you can move while you're doing it. It's incredibly powerful. It's broken as fuck, and one of the most fun things to do in this game. I probably should have mentioned it earlier, but you know, here we go. Episode 3 is, I think, my favorite shine in the entire game. The goal is simple: reach the secret area of the 3rd floor, but it takes such an odd path. Climbing up from the bathroom to the 2nd floor, solving puzzles to cross room to room, getting Yoshi to eat the booze in the vents. This tiny little puzzle box almost resembles a Captain Toad level in its little intricacies and goofy progression that make it a joy to explore and solve its little problems. In episode 5, it's back to the casino. King Boo looks fucking awesome in this game, and it's an alright fight. I guess the annoying part is that he spins a slot machine wheel to decide what he does. He gives you fruit fairly often, which you use to damage him, but sometimes he just spits out enemies for like 5 spins in a row. Like, come on man, we both know how this ends, let's just get on with it, you know? And then, of course, there's the obligatory Shadow Mario Chase on 7, and 8 is red coins in the hotel. You know, they're fine. Continuing the trend from before, the game gets more and more interesting as it goes. For the most part, Sirena is a winner. Segmenting some of its levels onto the beach certainly helps, especially because the Manta is so fucking good. As does segmenting off the casino, which keeps the hotel feeling fresh for its entirety, even in its more routine Shadow Mario and red coin stuff, and they squeezed every inch of space out of the hotel when they ask you to explore everything for shine number 3. Noki Bay is split into lots of little pieces. Its primary feature is the titular bay, which begins poison but cleans up over time, and there's also a little storyline going on where the first couple shines are all you trying to clean the water. But also above that bay is a number of crisscrossing ropes connecting shell platforms, a series of sheer cliffs, and walls that retract into them when sprayed to open up narrow hidden passageways, plus 2 different underwater segments to break it all up a little more. The first episode is all about the cliffs, scaling them to fight the mole in the cannon from Pinna Park again. What an odd thing to recycle, but good on you for moving past being the gatekeeper. And the cliffs are very fun to scale anyway, giving lots of freedom to skip little bits. Continuing this reuse, the second level has you climb up the hidden pathways, which is also great and has lots of skips to fight Gooper Blooper for a third time for some reason. This one feels a little more egregious than the mole in the cannon, since the mole in the cannon only appeared once as a gatekeeper. Episode 3 has the Noki Elder shrink Mario down to get 8 red coins in a bottle. Really weird ability for him to have, but it's training for a larger gimmick. These diving sections turn the hover nozzle into vertical movement, used to clean Elymel's teeth in the next episode, a goofy boss battle where you stick close but not too close and need to manage your air as you spray his teeth clean. It's a very unique and odd boss and pretty memorable for that, even if it is really clunky and weird. Also, managing your air is a lot easier if you realize that you can just fly into his poison tears, which have air bubbles in them. You're supposed to spray them, I think, to get the bubbles out, but you can just bump into him and you'll heal it all off with the bubble anyway, so, you know. And then there's another 8 red coins in Elymel's lair for episode 8. I think it's a decently fun and unique mechanic that keeps Noki from getting stale. After that, the steam does kind of fizzle out. An Il Piantissimo race across the water, which mostly just results in you jumping out of the water and hovering as far as you can and doing that like 3 times. There's a secret stage and it's red coins, and Shadow Mario. The final secret shine in Noki Bay is just harassing Yellow Bird with water until it spits it out. It's a shame that this happens so often in this game, because the first half is really decent. I mean, a lot of it is reused, the bosses and the fact that it's using the underwater mechanic repeatedly, but it does get a unique area gimmick, and, despite the reuse, that one's pretty fresh and only seen here for one really interesting boss. Pianta Village is probably my favorite of the worlds. It's not even for the aesthetics. It's kind of just a cliff face with some mushrooms and grates underneath, although I do like that some of the missions take place at night, which is very atmospheric. And there are really big trees on the upper side, plus there's a long bridge and a hot spring. It sure is comfy, but there's just a lot of fun stuff going on here in general. The first mission has chain chomp pups on the loose that need to be cooled down with water and launched into a pond, which is a very fun mechanic that kinda returns in episode 4, where the big chain chomp needs to be dragged into the hot spring. Kind of a twist on the situation, as it lacks the launch that you used on the little chain chomps, but both of these are just great, low-key little challenges that have a unique mechanic to them where you constantly cool these big chain chomps off and dragging them around. It's good stuff. Episode 2 is the final Il Piantissimo race. I like how it travels up the big tree, that's a fun little twist. And episode 3 is an incredibly unique floodless challenge. The floor is lava and you need to reach the center of the village to save Flood and clear out the goo. A lot of this involves going underneath the village to sneak in before the actual floor's lava section, but man, the idea is so good, and I'm pretty sure in the speedrun they don't go to the underground. I think there's some cheesy way to get to the main parts of the village by jumping off a tree with a spin jump or something. I don't know how to do it, I'm not that good at this game. The idea for this is so good. There's a few jumps right at the end that have me convinced this absolutely should have been reused in the same way everything else was. Like in Bianco Hills maybe, it'd be really fun in the village section, I think. Episode 5 is the worst secret in the main levels, requiring you to drag Yoshi to the mushrooms underground to dive into hell. The chucking Pianta room. They either chuck you backwards or sometimes upwards from where you talk to them, and even tiny little changes in your position end you in wildly different places, usually dead. It's such a pain to wrangle these idiots, especially the moving ones, to progress, sometimes just waiting for their walk cycle so that they're in a position that's actually functional for you. It is so tedious and it feels so luck-based, and I'm sure it's just very precise, but it does not get any easier no matter how many times I play this game. Even having the flood in the red coin version only kinda helps by letting you skip a few of the throws if you spin jump out and just hover across, but oh. Episode 6 is spraying some pianos to clean them in a time limit. It's pretty whatever. I think it's fun enough to slide around since it's such a big open space. 7 is the usual, and 8 is a wide-spanning red coin hunt during the flower festival with coins in the trees and giant dandelion blooms that need to be ridden to fly out to a secret area, which is very cute. And also the second secret star is obtained by shooting the sun from on top of the tallest tree, which is a very bizarre secret but is kind of telegraphed by the shine on this platform here, so whatever. Pianta ain't perfect, but its ideas are extremely fun. The chomps and floors lava bits especially feel so unique and like they should have been used more or something similar to this. Perhaps, you know, maybe not my best idea to encourage more reuse in a game that already suffers from it, but I think it would be pretty nice if there was more very unique little situations like this. In general, even stuff like the red coins though has a little bit of extra flair to keep it fresh, and the level's pretty fucking strong. That just leaves Corona Mountain, which does have blue coins for some reason, but only one actual level. A bit of tight platforming in that damn boat. In theory, it's more the lily pads. The boat works properly when you're standing at its front, turning away from where you spray, but if you stand in the back half as you would instinctively do because that's how boats work, it instead travels with the spray, which I don't even have a good justification for this one. It's just really whack. It really defies any logic and messes up anyone who doesn't know the stupid trick to stand up front. But if you know that, it's like 20 seconds of steering the boat around and maybe an extra like 5 minutes to get the blue coins, which are all in that section, which is really fun and awesome. The final boss fight against Bowser's a fucking fever dream. Why are you two idiots in a flying bathtub together full of green jello? The whole thing is you rocket straight up and then ground pound on the little edges, these little things that stick out of it. And after each one, the floor collapses and you need to jump to safety. Sometimes you just clip through the collapsing bathtub and die instantly. Sometimes a stray splash of jello flops out and kills you instantly. And between the prongs, you just dodge fire and bullet bills, and then, yeah, that's it. It's a very underwhelming final boss the last 5 minutes if you don't get janked to death. How do I conclude this? It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. I love Super Mario Sunshine to death, usually in spite of itself. The movement is incredible. There's so many times and places where the movement absolutely blows the game apart, and almost every shine can be made much faster, easier, or more interesting by learning to wrangle this game's odd little intricacies. But at the same time, so many missions in this game feel like they were made in the last 2 weeks of development. You know, copy-pasted bosses, copy-pasted red coin missions, and Shadow Mario missions. The fucking blue coins, the 100 coins. This whole game was probably developed in a year and a half because the N64 and GameCube were disasters, and most of that seems to have been put into making gorgeous worlds and banger music. In a way, it's the perfect summery game for a cold autumn night. It's a very easy game, it's very relaxing, it has great music, and it's just so fucking warm. But it's also stumbling all over itself, even if it looks great doing it. It's the worst perfect game to ever exist. I would play this game any day of the week, and I'm deeply in love with it. And I wish it was the game that I feel like it is. But alas, things would change, and our next 3D Mario would be something very different. And I'll be talking about it in like 4 videos.